to book club. What we really need here is a opening music, which we don't have.
Not yet.
So I'll put it on my to-do list. All right. So I want something upbeat, catchy, sort of like, na 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 na
We
na
need a jingle.
club, na 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 club, something like
I like it.
that. Okay. So it's on my to-do list. I'll figure it out. But today we're going to discuss books on organization. So Sacheen and I each have a book that we're going to discuss. If Denise is able to jump on, she has a third book. So you want to go first? You want me to go first?
You can go first because the title of your book is way more interesting, and I want to hear what you think of it.
Okay. So I wanted to get a book that I hadn't gotten before. All right. So I've read a lot of books on organization. So, and I bought it on title alone, just the title. Swedish Death Cleaning for Beginners
It's a great title.
by Diana W. Fasht. Okay. It's a 4-hour book. I thought it would be a quick, easy read. Well, quick, easy listen. I got through like an hour of it, and I struggled to get through an hour of it. All right. So basically, what this book is, so Swedish death cleaning is actually a thing. Okay. And so I'm going to sum up the book in a sentence. So you don't have to buy the book. You go through your stuff. This is not what brings you joy or any of that nonsense. All right. It's getting rid of stuff you're not using, and that when you die, your family doesn't haul up the big dumpster and just randomly toss stuff in because you have so much stuff. You're supposed to go through it so that when you die, your family will take the time and treasure going through all of your stuff. Okay. Part of it, I think, was the person reading the book. I couldn't take her voice after a while. That was number one. And the first half hour of the book was just on how great it is. Okay. And then where she really lost me was that, you know what, you should prep yourself to do this. This is not going to be easy. All right. And you should create a mission statement after you meditate on it. And her mission statement was like a full page long. That's not a mission statement.
No.
Okay. So the only reason I didn't like return the book to Audible was because I'm going to review it. Okay. And I think that's kind of dishonest to buy a book, trash it, and then return it. Okay. So, all right. This now on Goodreads, it had a 3 rating on it. I didn't even read Goodreads on it. So there's going to be some people who are going to like this book, and I'm going to tell you who they are. They are the people who really don't want to clean at all. They don't want to do this. This is procrastination. Okay. So if you want to, like, I got this book and I'm really going to do it, but I got to go through the book first. Yeah, this book is for you. For people who don't really want to do this. Okay. And there might be like a handful of people who will really enjoy the book because it'll motivate them to do it. But oh my God, 1 hour of a 4-hour book was all I could stomach.
Oh boy. Okay.
All right. So no, I don't recommend the book.
Okay. So can I ask, were there any redeeming nuggets or insights or anything?
I mean, it's got the things in it. I mean, like mindful practices. Yeah. But
Okay.
you don't need a book on decluttering.
Right.
If you want mindful practices, there are way better books on it. And that whole 1-page mission statement, I was like, oh my God. No, absolutely not.
So do you think the title was just for clickbait because the content is so bad?
Well, I mean, it's a thing. It's a real thing.
Hmm. I mean, it sounds like it could be a real thing.
So I don't think it's clickbait,
Okay.
but I think she took a concept that was maybe like half hour, turned it into 4 hours.
Oh, so yeah. So what might have been like a 30-minute lecture ends up being a 3-hour TED Talk.
4 hour TED Talk.
A 4-hour TED Talk. Okay. Kind of like now I've not read the other more I think probably a little more famous declutterer who got famous a while back.
Oh,
Uh
Marie Kondo.
yes, so not as good. I hear her books are pretty good. I don't know, I've never read them, but I hear her books are pretty good and doesn't feel like a 4-hour a 30-minute lecture.
I haven't read. If we do organization again, I might read her book as
Okay.
comparison,
All right.
because I'm going. So I will say it did push me to start getting rid of things that I know is going to end up in the garbage if something happens to me.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's fair.
And
Okay.
just going to, I put a couple of my tarot in um, oracle cards up for sale. I mean, cheap. They were like $5,
Right.
and just getting rid of them. All right,
Okay.
things I'm not using. I can see that, but
Not
honestly,
a whole book worth.
it is not a whole book's worth. And I
That's fair.
wasted one of my Audible credits.
Well,
If at the end of the year I'm crying because I have to wait a month for my new
before, right.
I'm
Well, 3 days.
right.
You got to wait 3 more days and you'll get new credits. Just 3 days. It's almost over. Well, so we will not be adding the Swedish death decluttering book to my list of books to read.
No.
Okay, fair. All right. Well, I took a completely different book. I got The 4-Hour Work Week, expanded and updated, no less. This book was all the rage. I mean, I remember hearing about it when it came out, and either you loved it or you hated it, which I think is the case for most books. So let me just start out by saying, um, it isn't a book that you need to read more than once if you're going to read it. Number one. So don't feel like, I mean, I've got notes taken because I knew we were going to be talking about it. So I marked some things to make sure that I try to give him a reasonable articulation of you're going to either like Tim Ferriss or you're going to be really, really annoyed by Tim Ferriss. And here's why. The first part of this book, God love him, is all about him. It is it is a masterclass in giving you my credentials, but my credentials are so out there that I'm not even sure that you're going to believe them, but I'm going to give them to you anyway. And once I give you my credentials that are so kind of out there that I'm not sure that you're going to believe them anyway, then I'm going to talk to you about why my credentials make me well qualified to talk to you about how you should outsource and automate your
It's
life.
the first chapter, but go ahead.
I mean, listen, it is okay. So, first of all, he has a chronology. What is it? What do you call it? Chronology of pathology. Chronology of pathology. It's titles like that have you gritting your teeth and wanting to scratch your eyeballs out. Now, what is the chronology of pathology? This book will teach you the principles I have used to Princeton guest lecture, first American in history to hold a Guinness World Record in tango, advised more than 30 world record holders, Wired Magazine's greatest self-promoter of 2008, National Chinese Kickboxing whole chapters, whole chapters, MTV breakdancer in Taiwan, hurling competition in Ireland. Once you get past the self promotion of listen to me because I've done some things, because that's basically what it is. Please listen to me because I've done some things. Or more so, what it feels like is I found a way to drop out of the rat race, but I didn't quite get away from the guilt of dropping out of the rat race. So I need to overcompensate a little bit for that by telling you all the great things that I've done because I dropped out of the rat race, which is great. That's fine. There's some merits to that when you're trying to tell people how to organize their business, I guess, um, to showing how your path out is unorthodox but works. Great. So once you can get past some of the wading through the muck of that, you get into what are some interesting concepts. So his basic program is the deal system. He has this thing called the deal system. And he wants you to use it to basically, in a nutshell, outsource and automate most of your working life so that you're only actually needing to work on your business about 4 hours a week. I mean, that's the whole book in a nutshell. It's a lot of pages, but in a nutshell. So DEAL stands for define. Oh, shoot, I done forgot already because I marked it. It's, hang on a minute. I did mark it. Just got to find it. Define. Oh, shoot, where's the rest of it? Okay, sorry, Mary. I do have it marked. I just have a lot of things marked. What did I do with it? Talks about it all over the place. Nope, that's dreamlining. Let's not even get started on dreamlining yet. Okay, sorry guys. This is my fault because I thought I had marked and I do have it marked. I don't have the page turned down where I have it marked. So now I've got to hunt. Anyway, so deal or dealer, depending on if you're an entrepreneur or an employee, is your ticket out of working more than you need to. And he takes the 80-20 rule, which is the idea that if you can figure out where you need to put 20% of your good resources, you can reap 80% of the results, basically. And he takes that and kind of uses it to show if you can take your life, your business life, your personal life, and identify the 20% where you make your money, where you actually are productive, and focus on that to get 80% of the results, then you should trim away everything else. And that sounds in theory plausible, right? Like, so the thing I appreciate about this book is what he's saying it's not impossible. What he's saying about a 4-hour work week, the way he articulates it, is that take the things that you're good at, do them to make money. Everything else, outsource and automate. Now, from the perspective of a single, no dependents, young male, that probably worked really well for him. But I can understand why critics are very much like, this doesn't make sense. Because if you're talking about being if you have a family, this doesn't make sense because you can't just decide to outsource and automate all of your life. That's not possible. Even though he gives some interesting examples of people who do so, I'm a little suspect that they might not actually have done it this way. But if you just take that on its face of cutting the fluff, working to your strengths, things that we've heard, right? These are not business concepts that we haven't heard before. He just puts them in what's very much kind of bro coded, that feeling of young white male is what it feels like. Yep. So if you can get past some of that, the information isn't terrible. I mean, I marked some things that I thought he did really well, interspersed in the things that he was just really driving me crazy about. And he does talk about the 80-20 rule, and that does make sense. He does talk about distractions, right? Taking on what he calls the low information diet, not spending all your time gathering information, which prevents you from actually doing anything. That's legitimate, right? Like that's a decent thing to tell someone. How do you organize your life to get to a 4-hour work week? Well, part of the criticism of him, and I appreciate the people who criticized him for it, is that he likes shortcuts. So he believes in finding the best loopholes in the system to allow him to game the system. Again, this is written from the perspective of someone for whom the system is set up for them to succeed. So when they game the system, they don't really suffer the consequences because the system is set up for him to succeed. And I think that's important for anyone who picks this up to recognize, is that we're not all Tim Ferriss. We don't have that kind of life where the barriers to entry are open. There are no barriers. As long as you show up and give even 50%, you're going to be fine. A lot of people are not going to have that luxury. And so some of the ways in which he talks about gaming the system is going to put kind of an ick on you, because you're going to realize, dude, so he talks about being the Chinese martial arts, whatever. And the way he won that title was by finding out that in the rules, there's a loophole that if you threw your opponent off the platform 3 times in a row, it's called an automatic knockout. So instead of engaging in the art of, I think it was Taekwondo, I'm not even sure which one it was, one of the martial arts, and actually engaging in that particular fighting style, he would just find ways to get the opponent to fall off the platform, thereby winning him the match. And he did that So that, and he talks about how he goes on, he does that over and over again, and he wins the title. And rightfully so, the question becomes, so then you didn't actually win the title, you just exploited a loophole in the rules that say if you knock an opponent off the dais 3 times in a row, you win. But you didn't actually win anything. you're still not you're not the Taekwondo champion because you know how to do this art form. You did it because you basically found a loophole to let you cheat. So if you can keep that in the back of your head when you're reading some of the things that he's talking about, you realize it would appear that Tim Ferriss hasn't met an obstacle that he couldn't get around because he's been able to get around obstacles by virtue of being Tim Ferriss, if that makes sense. It's this very circular kind of thing. So how do we get to a 4-hour work week from a guy who doesn't really, I'm sure he works a 4-hour work week. I have no doubts about that. Like I looked up some of the things that he said to verify it was true, because at some point I was like, is this stuff even accurate? But it's out there. He's not lying. I mean, you can verify his life. So then when you can verify his life, I started to look at what is exactly that he's talking about to get us to 4 hours. And that's when overseas outsourcing pops up. It's micro workers in other countries. It's executive assistants in other countries. It's exploiting cheap labor in other countries to do the heavy lifting of freeing up your time in the Western Hemisphere. And that leads to a lot of interesting ethical questions, right? Like, what are we talking about when we're talking about a 4-hour work week where you can pay $1 a day or $1 an hour for an executive assistant who, yes, can clean out your inbox for you every single day and put together Excel spreadsheets and do research for you. And yes, you're working a 4-hour work week, but that's because somebody else has taken over at a very low rate that work that you yourself would get paid to do. So that's the entrepreneur piece. For the employee piece, he wants you to figure out ways to get remote because, and I do agree with this, he points out that a lot of 9 to 5 work is repetitive it's just redundant and repetitive to keep people at their desk for 8 hours doing nothing. Having been in the workforce long enough, he's not wrong about that. But his way out is to convince your employer to pay you good money and then remote your job. And then once you remoted your job, then you can begin to outsource parts of your job because no one's watching you anymore, right? So now you can begin to outsource some pieces of the job that you would have been, the busy work you might have been required to do sitting in an office, you don't have to do at home because, you know, I've learned that you can get people to do anything for you. You can hire someone in a foreign country to do just about anything that you want them to do in the World Wide Web world. And that mimicry of your time, of your presence, can fool systems into believing that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? And so for employees, he's like, listen, the best thing that you can do is get a better raise or get a good bump and then try to get remote. And then you can start scaling your 40 hours down to 20 hours by outsourcing, and then maybe even down to 10 hours. But as long as your work gets done, no one will be able to say you're not getting your work done, and then they won't see you killing those other 30 hours sitting on a beach, surfing, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of employers are like, they want to physically see you
They
sitting
do.
at your desk. So
They
that,
do.
uh, and
So
here,
eventually you have to get to the L, which is liberation. For some reason, I can't remember what the E and the A stand for, but the L is liberation. To get liberated, you have to, if you're an employee, you have to get to a place where you're doing remote work, or else this does not work for you. You can't get down to a 4-hour work week. So this book is really written for entrepreneurs. He tries to tweak it for the employee, but it doesn't work for employee. It really doesn't work well. Um, it's like I said, it's written from a place of intense privilege, like intense privilege, and an assumption that somehow, if you can just find the right loophole in the system, then you too can make $40,000 a month sitting on a beach in Thailand, or winning our salsa contest in Buenos Aires, and that all makes sense. None of it makes sense. Like he drops some really good nuggets of things. He asks some really good questions. If you read this book with the eye for, I'm just going to take from this book a guy who's had a successful business. He's obviously run a successful business. We know who he is. He's on the New York Times bestseller list. He's written this book everybody talked about. He does know some things, and let him talk to you about what he's learned and the lessons that he's learned. This book is fine. If you're looking for the 4-hour work week, then I can give it to you in a nutshell. 20% of your work needs to be done to get 80% of the return. Outsource as much of it as you can, automate everything else. That's it. That's your whole work week right there.
All right. So I won't be purchasing that book.
I'll send you my copy.
That's okay.
You can read it.
That's okay. I appreciate it. Because and now here, if someone's in the service industry, like grooming,
Yes.
there's no way you get down to a 4-hour work week.
And you wouldn't do it this way anyway. Like, why would you want to groom with someone who is trying to find every shortcut possible to not be grooming?
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't want to you wouldn't want to work with a groomer or a coach or an educator or anyone who is looking for the least amount of effort. Because this is a low effort idea. Least amount of effort, biggest amount of return. If he were selling an MLM, we'd be like, you're totally a snake oil salesman, right? Like, but he's not. He's selling a business idea. And I think this is why he gets pushback from what should be his core audience, which are young white males, should love this book because it's very bro quoted, this kind of work hard for work smarter, not harder, right? It's that whole concept, but it just doesn't ring true because really you're just exploiting labor in other countries for pennies that you don't want to pay an executive assistant where you live to do the thing that would free up your time because you want to have that extra money coming in. And the only way to get that is to exploit labor in another country. So it's capitalism on steroids.
Okay. All right.
That's my thoughts.
Core Moods lives in a European socialist democratic country.
Oh my.
36 hours is their full time. And yeah, we wish. For most people in the country, 36 hours is like half a work week.
Yeah, you're looking at 45, 55, 60
Yeah.
easily.
I love the concept of a 4-hour work week.
Me too.
And I'm retired from the service part of my business, and you think that might be doable. And so far, the best I can do is getting it down to a 3-day work week.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm at, and has a lot of automation in it. And maybe I might even be able to get it down to a 2-day work week now that I've moved my website over to a new site. But I think honestly, that's as good as I'm going to get until I just wrap it up and say this has been awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. If you're out there and you're listening to this, I want you to think about something really important. And that is the 80-20 rule actually does make sense. If you looked at where you were spending the majority of your time, you would probably see that your biggest money-making moments are probably confined to a short lane, like a very narrowly defined slice of your life, if you're talking about business, right? Him telling you to focus most of your attention there because that's producing 80% of your income, that actually makes perfect sense. And I think more companies should do it. I know when I read that, I'm like, the one of the things that I do need to do is go back and look at the things that have produced the most for me and lean into those things, because that makes sense. Intuitively, that just makes more sense. Why am I doing so much busy work on things that don't make sense? Now, here's the kicker, right? The busy work still has to be done. And his solution is to outsource, which, okay, outsource and automate. So I get it. That's why you're able to go down to a 3-day work week, right? Because you've automated some things and that allows you to do that.
And I do have a virtual assistant. This is my daughter.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Who I can trust and who I can yell out if she doesn't do what but I also pay her well.
Right. And I don't think it's fair to say, run your $100,000 or, $100 million a month, whatever business by outsourcing it to countries where you can pay them 33 cents a day and call that good business practices. I mean, I think we have to ask ourselves the ethical questions of what kind of business am I running? Do I want people to replicate this? I don't think I want people to replicate this. Yeah, like I said, he's really got some good nuggets here and there, but it's not worth the $30 that I spent for it. How much did I spend for the book? $27. I put $27 in Tim Ferriss's wallet um, to get this read. But you're gonna, if you read it, you're going to pull your hair out because you're gonna say, this is written by a guy who's never had a barrier that he didn't find a loophole. Not that he got over successfully, but that he didn't find a loophole through. And that's, yeah, we got enough bad business books on the market. We got
Okay.
plenty of them.
So maybe, well, anyway, we'll be back next week. Now, we're not
We
going to
will.
be doing this every week because, we have lives,
We do.
but we'll be back next week and we're going to discuss Am I Good Enough? Is that the name of the book?
I thought it was more than enough.
I'm more than enough. That's it.
Yes.
Okay. From different perspectives, because I am sure Sacheen will have a totally different perspective than I do. And Denise should be here next week. And I know her perspective is totally different from mine. So I find it really interesting that when we read the same book, we're pulling different things out of it.
Yes.
So next week will be, what do you call it? Next week will be the same book, but that's not always going to be the case.
Mhm.
For a morality standpoint, that's how you get children in the Congo mining for materials for iPhones. Billionaires are not to be followed ethically.
And you're right. That's why I wanted to point out that when he talks about outsourcing, the examples that he's using are Bangladeshis. And I think that it's important to recognize from a very Western business perspective, labor exploitation is part of capitalism. You can't get around that. So if you follow his prescription for the 4-hour work week, you have to be okay with exploiting labor in other countries. So, and for some people that's going to work, and for most people it's not.
Yeah. So we'll see everybody next week to discuss another book.
Yes.
So, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe.
Please do. We'll be back next week.
You know, so thank you for watching. We do appreciate it.